Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim, he's AC. We are in the middle of a party. If you can't tell, we're pretty hot because we just finished a basketball game. Especially AC over here, who's sweating like balls.
Sorry. It's like 85 with 100% humidity out.
Yeah, it's pretty hot out. But we are back in school, and the one thing we saw the other day, I made that top 5 quarterbacks for 2011 list. Surprised a lot of people by putting Phillip Rivers at number 1. Another thing that we saw there, and let's go through the situation. You're sitting at the next table, I'm sitting at the first table. You're sitting with completely different people, we're not even talking, not like we're arguing, but just like we're in a completely different conversation. And then we look up to the TV in the lunchroom, and Skip Bayless is on, and they have the volume turned off, so I'm just reading when they have that, like the black stuff with the white writing on it.
The captions.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then Skip Bayless is being asked about the Eagles or the Cowboys, who's better. This to me is just such an idiotic question. But let's go through position by position. We will break this down because, of course, Skip Bayless said it's the Cowboys. He talks about how all the Eagles signings are overhyped. The point is, though, that the Eagles signings, they were already a team that played better than the Cowboys last year and as good as... No, not as good as the year before, but the Cowboys have changed up some of their defense. They have a completely different head coach. I mean, I don't know. Offensively, I think both teams are built to their strengths. Quarterback-wise, I basically call it a tie in terms of skill. If you ask me who I want on my team, is it Tony Romo, who takes vacations in the middle of the season, or Michael Vick, who's pissed and wants to win? It's sure as hell Michael Vick.
As far as motivation and wanting to win and... Well, I don't know about that because Tony Romo's looking at a situation where everybody's looking at him saying, okay, now this year you got to do something. You know, you missed all of last year, almost all of last year, and what happened? They went 6-10. So, I mean, you're looking at a situation for both quarterbacks where if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, or I don't know about the Cowboys, but let's put it this way, if the Cowboys don't make at least a semi-deep playoff run, they're going to be pointing the finger and saying Tony Romo. So, I mean, both quarterbacks are under a bit of pressure this year, but as far as motivation, I'm still taking Vic because with all the crap that he's been through, no one wants to win a Super Bowl more than him.
Now, running backs, hands down, I'd take LaShawn McCoy. Felix Jones, I think, is a ton of talent. He's one of the fastest guys in the NFL, but the health problem, they cut Marion Barber. I think they have still Tashard Choice, who's a good running back, but LaShawn McCoy... I don't know if he's top 5, but he's top 7 running backs in the NFL probably, and he's only going to get better. And the thing he can do is he can catch passes out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Now, as far as receivers, if you put them with the traditional offense, I'm certainly taking the Cowboys receivers. But I think if you look at what the Eagles try and do, their receivers are better for what they try and do, and the Cowboys receivers are better for what they try and do. So, I mean, you can look at it a few different ways, but I'm not going to even really judge the wide receivers.
It's different. It's a different game. The way they play the game, it's different. You know, the Eagles, they like to have Vic, roll out and then go deep, look for Deshaun deep.
It's what they do the first play of the game, basically. Every game.
And people and it works. You know,
yeah,
people can't figure it out.
you can figure it out, but when you get a quarterback out there, going back, running backwards is pretty tough when you got Deshaun Jackson, one of the fastest receivers, running out against you. The Cowboys, I mean, Des Bryant is just, he's a beast. And the same thing goes for Miles Austin. They probably have the best 1-2 tandem, maybe in the NFL. But if I'm looking to build around Michael Vick, I would take Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin.
Because they're more suited to the way Vic plays the game.
And the X factor really is Steve Smith. I think maybe you could even say the Eagles are deeper, but 1 and 2, Cowboys are better. Depth-wise, you got Steve Smith, who was a Pro Bowler 2 years ago, as your number 3. You got Jason Avant, who's got some of the surest hands in the NFL at number 4, and Riley Cooper, who hasn't really done much, but people have big expectations for him because he's 6'5", and he's just that type of player that people kind of like. So that's a tough one. Tight ends, you got to take the Cowboys. Jason Witten, I think, is the best tight end in the NFL. Martellus Bennett is a starter on most teams. And Brent Selleck's very good, but he had a down year last year because he was forced to make up for the offensive line woes that the Eagles had. Now, on to that offensive line. Eagles obviously is being hyped about how bad their offensive line is. I think the thing you got to look at is the Cowboys' offensive line
is equally
pretty bad. And the thing is, Michael Vick can run, Tony Romo can. I'm taking the Eagles. Now, we got to keep this video under 10 minutes because that's how this camera works, so we're going to fly through the rest of this.
Defensive line.
Yeah, defensive line. You got DeMarcus Ware, who's the best in the game, but Trent Cole's very underrated, and with some help on that defensive line, maybe he'll move it. Jay Ratliff is a beast, but you also are talking about Colin Jenkins, who Skip Bayless wants to say, oh, he didn't have anything to do with the Cowboys because I didn't hear his name. You didn't hear his name because you work for a network that shows 3 plays in a game, and that's the whole story they give in the game. Colin Jenkins is one of the top 12, 10 defensive tackles in the NFL, somewhere in that area, and I think that you cannot... Football is a team game. Not every player, every position is going to be a big name. You're not going to see people walking around wearing Colin Jenkins jerseys. But that doesn't take away from how good the guy is.
That doesn't take away from the fact that he's a monster in the middle. If your offensive line's weak, he's going to get through.
Yeah, and he can play defensive end too.
Yeah, he can.
Opposite of him, you're talking about Jaquay Parker, who is a 3rd defensive end, which is what he will be this year. Jason Babin, and this is the other thing. Skip Bayless. Jason Babin's been with 6 teams. Guess what? We've interviewed Jason Babin, nice guy. Jason Babin went to Tennessee last year after leaving Philly. He didn't really get a chance in Philly, as he told us that basically, to work with Jim Washburn, the defensive line coach. Jim Washburn's now here in Philly. Jason Babin's going to stick with that. And if Jason Babin doesn't repeat what he did last year, I think you could talk about having maybe somebody else steps up the way that Jason Babin did under Jim Washburn. That's the type of thing you got to look at. Linebackers, Cowboys got it. I don't really know too much about their linebackers, but they can't be worse than what the Eagles have.
No, because the Cowboys run a different scheme. I think they're on a 3-4, right?
Everyone in the NFL except the Eagles.
So, I mean, that's a better defensive scheme to begin with, and I'm not going to get into that because we're limited on time here. But
secondary-wise, cornerbacks, you don't be with the Eagles. You got Nnamdi Asomugha, not an impact player according to Skip Bayless. Well, that's why he only got thrown to like 15 times last year. Asante Samuel, who was one of the best ball hawks, 2nd best behind Ed Reed probably in the NFL. Yes, he gets burned, but when you talk about in certain packages, they're going to have Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie and Nnamdi Asomugha. I'm a little less concerned. Safety-wise, they have some trouble, but I think that's going to make up for it.
Here's the thing I'm looking for with the Eagles. People talk about the fact that Asante gets burned sometimes and that DRC is not a shutdown corner. Well, look at this. Who are you going to throw to? Nnamdi? No. Who are you going to throw to? Asante? No. Where are you going to throw?
You might get burned. Asante might get burned
maybe once in a game. Maybe once or twice a game, but that you can't count on that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certain games where he won't get burned, there's certain games where he will. That's Asante Samuel's style of playing the game. And I personally, he's probably my favorite player on the team. Now you talk about, altogether, head coach, as much as we get on Andy Reid, I like Jason Garrett, but he's unproven, and Andy Reid knows how to work with players, just not on game day. I'll take Andy Reid for now. I still can't stand Andy Reid. I still want Andy Reid fired because he has the same issues year after year after year.
It's just like a never-ending
cycle. I mean, I think what we both get to is with all the injuries to the Giants, the Cowboys really could go 9-7 or 10-6. But for an Eagles team that went 11-5 last year, I think that they can
improve. And they've only improved.
Or they went to 10-6 last year, and I think that. I mean, you want to say these aren't huge signings, but they're not going to hurt the Eagles. So the Eagles are going to go 11-5 or 12-4. It makes sense. And I think adding Ronnie Brown in there, everyone's so sure that Michael Vick's going to have a season-ending injury by week 2. You don't know that. Michael Vick, I think, will play about 13 or 14 games this year. And with Vince Young, who is a good enough backup to keep you in a game, and you got good running backs, I think that the Eagles will make the playoffs and have a decent shot in them. Andy Reid's a coach, so I don't think they'll win the NFC over the Packers or maybe even the Falcons. I think they could beat. I think they probably would just because of the Michael Vick factor. But I'm not going to take away from what the Cowboys are going to be. I'm not going to sit here and be a homer. But I think right now the Eagles are a better team.
And let's just get this straight, that we were only making this video because of retarded Skip Bayless on ESPN that we saw and got pissed off at lunch, and that ruined the rest of my day, of course. But, I mean, it's ridiculous what some of these guys have to say.
It's ridiculous that these guys...